These are the solutions for the third practice quiz for quiz 6 in the third trimester of Algebra 2. So find the amplitude, that's the absolute value of A. This time A is -4, so the absolute value is going to kick in. Remember that the amplitude is always the distance from the midline. So if we're looking at the graph of A again, that distance from the midline, which is the x-axis, is 1. Find the period, 2 pi over the absolute value of B. So B is the coefficient on X, which is 4 in this case. So this will be pi over 2 for the period. So the period is just the length of one cycle of the wave, whatever. So if we're talking tick marks, this would be 6 pi over 12, it would be 6 tick marks. Okay, so find the minimum, that's this formula. Find the maximum, that's this formula. So all these two formulas is you're adjusting from the midline. The midline is K. In this case, -3. So be a little careful on this. Minus the absolute value of A. So we got a lot of things kicking in here. This is plus, sorry about that. So -3 minus 2. -5, and then -3 plus 2, -1. So the midline on this was -3. So that's what makes it a little goofy. And then the amplitude is down 2 from -3, taking you to -5, and up 2 from -3, taking you to -1. So these are Y values that you're looking at with that. Once again, look at the amplitude. So I can tell immediately that number 6 is B, because that's an amplitude of 4. I can tell that 5 is going to be D, because this is an amplitude of 3 that goes through, that's a sine graph. And then this is an amplitude of 1, that's a cosine graph, so that's A. And then this is an amplitude of 0.5, that's a sine graph, so that's C. So it's pretty easy to tell just based on amplitude. Also the B value, and this will come up, will compress or stretch the wave. So the larger the B value, the busier the wave. So you see the B value of 4 here, that means that wave is very busy. So I also know that helps me there. And then the smaller B values will flatten or stretch the wave, and it's much less busy. So you see here, this is a B value of 1, meaning that that wave is the most stretched, not very busy relative to the rest of the waves. Okay, and then same idea on this page. You're going to have to look at your identity page and look things up. So actually 7 and 8 are just straight. There's not any simplifying to do. You just, okay, 1 over cosecant, that's sine. Sine over cosine, that's tangent. And then cosecant squared, so the bottom is 1, which, yeah, so those were easy. But generally speaking, you know, the first practice quiz was the best. With substitute in, turn everything into sine and cosine terms. If you see squares, it's likely that you are on the Pythagorean identities. So look at those. Okay, so one simple substitution is what you would need here. So we'll make this 1 or 2 simple substitutions. Cosine over sine. Does this equal cosecant? So we have 1 over sine. Does that equal cosecant? And you could have turned that into 1 over sine as well. But that would show that they are equal. So here we have 1, and then secant squared, so this would be 1 over cosine squared. Cotangent squared would be cosine squared over sine squared. Using, again, the idea of squares, on the reciprocal identities. So I'm doing that here and here and here. Okay, using the idea of squares on the reciprocal identity side of things. Cubes, whatever the power is. You can, powers also work right here. Okay, so you can raise any of those to whatever power you need. All right, so we have A is 3, B is 2, and H and K are both 0. So we can start our table at 0 and do a couple of calculations here. So pi over 2 times 2, pi over 4, so 3 pi over 12. We got to turn it into 12, so that's your scale again. So this one would be 3 pi over 12. So you, again, just want to take your calculator, 3 times sine of 2 times 0. So we'll do 0 first. That gives us 0. Also know that the midline is 0. Okay, 2 times 3 pi over 12. And that takes us up to 3. Okay, so that's going to come back down to 0. So it's important to see the midline, and the graph will fluctuate up and down from the midline when you do this. So it's going to take you up to 3, back down to 0. Okay, so 0, 0, 3, and then up to 3. So it'll be quite stretched. Back down here, 9 will take us down to -3, and then back up. So again, you're doing the whole, you know, kind of opening down looking parabola shape, although it's not a parabola, and then opening up. You draw it the same way as you draw a parabola. So that's why I'm referring to it. So there's the graph, and note that the midline, again, is where the graph switches over, and that's important that you see that that midline is the K value in the equation. And those are the solutions for practice quiz 3, for quiz 6 in the third trimester of Algebra 2.